Hey everybody. Hey Jim Jimmers. Yeah, I said Jim Jimmers. Yeah, it's a new one. What do I see? What do I have? I've got Reinventionistos. I got Revolutionaries, and now I have Jim Jimmers. I know it's a little weird, but I thought I'd give it a shot. Look, I'm just going to blame it on the coffee I'm drinking right now, which is from Luna Bakery here in Cleveland Heights. So if you're in the North Coast and visiting and want a great spot to get some coffee, try Luna because I love their coffee. It's awesome. I love their coffee. Anyways, check it out if you're here. But I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with Leif Anderson, who is a physician on fire, and that's financially independent, retired early, and he is smack dab in the middle of his reinvention. He's shifting his life around from being a full-time anesthesiologist. Right, anesthesiologist. Easy for me to say because I'm drinking coffee right now. So, and to shifting it to more full-time traveling and spending more time with his family and his children, and running his blog called Physician on Fire. So I'm super excited to meet him at FinCon coming up here, and that reminds me, I am just under the gun right now because I have not even thought about packing. I have to do laundry. I need to go to the gym and work out. I need to eat dinner. I need to print out my tickets and figure out what my hotel is and how I'm going to get to the airport tomorrow morning early. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff I got to do, and so I got to get this opening recorded and pumped out to everybody. Hopefully I'll get the episode released this week. Right now it's Tuesday night, and I'm leaving early Wednesday for Orlando, Florida. So I'll see everybody at FinCon the next few days here, and hopefully I can get this episode released while I'm on the road. But at least I wanted to get the opening recorded tonight. So there you have it, everybody. Oh, and by the way, I'm calling out a couple of my doctor friends I know on this episode that they need to be listening to this. So Dr. Arun, if you're listening, and Dr. Irina, if you're listening, you need to listen to Leif and check out what he's up to, and check out his site, Physician on Fire, because he's speaking to the doctors and the high-income people out there and challenging them to manage their finances better. And, of course, if they're interested, to retire early and maybe they'll have a shot at a different type of career, which I think is interesting these days and is really part of my point of view with the reinvention revolution is that, this is something that really can be considered more commonly now as having maybe 2 or 3 different careers. If you manage your money properly, you can retire from the first one and move on to another one and, bring some more creativity to the party. So I really think it's a great idea. All right, Jim Jimmers, I need to get out of here right now and hit the gym before I lose momentum. And while I'm doing that, everyone else needs to listen to this episode. And if you have a medical professional in your life that needs to be called out and needs to listen to this episode, please make sure you share it with them. All right, here we go.
Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit jimreinventionrevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim.
Hey everybody, hey, this is Jim. Welcome to episode 38 of Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and I'm talking today with Leif, who is an anesthesiologist on fire. So, Leif, welcome to the revolution.
Thank you very much, Jim. I'm happy to be here this morning, having a nice little chat with you.
Well, thanks for taking time out, and thanks for starting early because we got connected early this morning. My first question for you is being an anesthesiologist on fire, is that a medical condition, or what does that mean exactly?
Good question. Yeah, because it burns when I do this. No, it doesn't. Yeah, and I think you're probably familiar, and some of your listeners probably are too, with the concept of the acronym FIRE, which is Financial Independence, Retire Early. And that last part, of course, is optional. And as an anesthesiologist, I am a physician. Not everyone realizes that anesthesiologists are medical doctors. First go to medical school and then do further training in residency to become an anesthesiologist. So I speak to the physicians out there, other high-income professionals, people in high-stress jobs that are maybe looking for a way to slow down and live life a bit differently.
I see. Well, you know what? I have people listening out there that know the show. I've had a few episodes on that talks about this term FIRE, financially independent, retired early, that is kind of have become a thing, I think, over the last few years. I just discovered it about a couple years ago for myself. You've always heard about people that retire early or that are financially independent, but for me, I always thought it was like retiring early, that means like, oh, I'm 62. Not and not 65 or not 67, or not 73, because you're thinking you got to work your whole life. And the financially independent people those were legacy people that had big trust funds and, that kind of thing. It didn't seem very close or real for me anyways with my situation. I don't know if you were thinking like this. How did you discover this term or concept, and how's it changed your mind, or how's it affected how you're looking at life these days?
Yeah, my situation isn't a whole lot different than yours in terms of not having really thought much about it or realized it was easily achievable. So for me, it was 3 or 4 years ago that I discovered the term, and that was with an article from Mr. Money Mustache, who was in the media. He's he retired at 30 basically from a software engineering job, and lives a relatively frugal lifestyle in Colorado. And that wasn't exactly what I was interested in. When I discovered it, I was closer to 40. But I did look at the math behind it, and this idea that if you've accumulated about 25 years worth of your annual spending, there's a good chance that money is going to last indefinitely. And when I ran my own numbers, I was very surprised to realize that I was in a position to retire early anytime I wanted. And so I let that idea percolate for quite a while. And a little more than a year later, after discovering that website and another called the White Coat Investor, which was personal finance for physicians, I decided to start a site of my own to further explore these ideas and share them with people that might find them as revolutionary as I did.
I see. So, well, that's a great word, by the way, revolutionary, because I think it is sort of like, an aha moment, or it really opens your mind when you think about it for yourself, where it's like, I never really thought about that, because especially someone like you go through school, and I was kind of like this too, because I have a graduate degree. You go through school, get your BS, you get your graduate degree, and in your case, you're a medical doctor, so it's much more training, and then your specialty, so more training after that. You don't get into your working life until maybe you're 30 years old, probably.
Exactly.
Right? Somewhere around there. And
That's
then
where I was, yep.
Yeah, then you have debt and all this stuff. So it's probably not even on your radar screen to even think about early retirement or think about what you're going to do kind of maybe later in life when you can stop grinding as hard, let's say, because when you get out of school, you're probably under the gun of learning your profession and paying off debt and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it really was just that simple, where you kind of just discovered this blog or information one day, and it kind of just turned the light bulb on for you. Is that what you say?
It did, and I was a bit skeptical at first, but once I started taking some time and I discovered other people doing this, it wasn't just one random guy from Canada, but all kinds of people that had figured this out. And
I see.
Of course, there are white papers and academic studies from the Trinity study and William Bengen's study from 20, 30 years ago. So this wasn't really a brand new concept. It just wasn't one that was commonly talked about.
Right.
And I wasn't in a position where I hated my job. I wasn't looking for a quick way out. There were some frustrations, and there are with every job. There are also some really rewarding aspects too. But this was all 3 or 4 years ago. So by now, I've had enough time to really think about what's best for me and for my family, and what I want my future to look like. And so I am planning to transition from a career in medicine to that of, I guess we can say, a stay-at-home parent, although I'll be much more of a on-the-road parent. We plan to do a lot of traveling with our children, who are currently 7 and 9, about to be 8 and 10 years old. And I'm also continuing to work on this blog, which the physicianonfire.com is 2.5 years now running, and it's it's grown into a bit of a business on its own, I guess. And I enjoy it, so I'll continue to do that.
Right. Well, I was looking at it, and folks listening out there, if you are, especially if you're in the medical profession, I think, like I have a few doctor friends, actually 2 doctor friends I've been talking to lately about this exact idea of, they're both really stressed out, the way the medical profession is now, and they're more general medicine kind of doctors, so they're like, they get 10 minutes maybe to see a patient, and then on to the next, and on to the next, and they have to kind of crank through all these patients all day long.
Meet every metric that administration has set for them, and meet all the quotas, and
exactly. So they're really like, they're slamming it, and they have families, and they have responsibilities, but it's they haven't come up for air yet, really, in their career, in a way. I don't think, or in their life. They're like so worried about, I got to do this. I'm stressed out. They take vacations, and they'll take off for 10 days, and they're just they go kind of wild for 10 days because they got to get rid of that stress, and then they're right back to the grind. But what I was saying is, if you get a chance to look at this website, you really got to check it out if you're any at all kind of related to the medical profession, because it's a stronger voice out there when it's someone that you can identify with. But what I wanted to ask you was, I was looking at your website, and it's so detailed, and there's so much depth in it. There's all these case studies and scenarios and calculators and all these kind of things, which maybe you can describe a little bit of that. But my first question is about it is that, did you have any background in or financial literacy when you started digging into this? Because it's a sophisticated thing to kind of start investing and working with your finances in a way, especially when you're not trained. And I think doctors and lawyer type people are kind of notorious for not being that good at managing their own money.
Right.
Maybe you could talk about that for a second.
Sure. I have always been a do-it-yourself investor, and I guess the basis for that bit of education started when I was in medical school even, and I started, I think, getting frustrated even then with the surgery rotation, where we were just working 100 hours a week and treated poorly by the chief residents, and just, I'm like, I can't imagine doing this forever. And I think I sent my dad an article about swing trading, where you hold the stock for a few days, and if you find the peaks and valleys and all this stuff that, of course, probably doesn't work well at all in real life. Most people fail that try. Right. But he said, that's really not what you want to do. Here's a book called The Only Investment Guide You'll Ever Need by Andrew Tobias. Oh. And I read it and learned the basics of investing and realized that buy and hold is where it's at, and that, saving money on the goods you buy is even better than earning it, because, dollar saved is almost $2 earned at a marginal tax rate where I live. Right. And, those sorts of concepts were planted before I started making money. And, I learned not to make big mistakes, like don't buy whole life insurance, just buy term life if you need it. Right. Things of that nature. And then I discovered the Bogle heads once I had actual money. There's a website, and it's fans of Vanguard founder John Bogle, who talk in a forum that's very, very intelligent and populated by many people with pretty significant wealth. And they also have a wiki, which is got topics of investing all across the board. Mm-hmm. And I've learned quite a bit there. I mentioned the white coat investor. When I found him, I learned more from him. And I started playing with spreadsheets and making projections about where we might be, and playing with the compound interest calculator, the future value function in Excel, all those sorts of things. It all just, I guess, kind of came together to the point where when I started the website, I had a pretty good handle on what I was doing, and I felt comfortable sharing what I was doing with others.
I see. Well, before you started the website, you were kind of thinking about this and really doing some analysis on your own, like budget and cash flows, right? First, you were there was getting a handle on it, right?
Right. A little more than a year between when I first discovered the concept of FIRE and when I actually started the site. And I took that year or two actually start tracking our spending to make sure I truly had financial independence, because it would be really not great to tell everyone that, hey, I'm financially independent. And never mind.
Yeah, wait a second.
I spent $100,000 this year.
Yeah, for a month I was. Yeah, right.
Yeah. thought I was. So just to make sure that was true, and then think more about, wow, would I really actually walk away from this great career? And when you get to the point where you realize it's 100% optional, and you don't have to carry a pager, and you don't have to go in at 3 a.m. if you don't care to.
Right.
It's a different situation. I used to think I loved my job. It turns out it's just something I like doing sometime, but there are numerous downsides to it. And when you have the choice between a week off and a week of busy, stressful work, which are you going to choose?
Yeah, right. Well, you know what? I want to explore this for a second, because I'm kind of getting into that same boat where you just described, where you kind of realize, hey, I have a certain level of assets, and I've been analyzing it, and yes, I have some choices now. But how do you wrap your head around the idea that, if you so choose, that you could leave this career? I mean, that's kind of I think sort of a bridge you have to jump across, or maybe it's just a dive into the unknown or something. Are you, because you're still working as a physician today, right? As an anesthesiologist.
I am. Yep.
Right.
I'll be working another year. We've hired my replacement. He's coming from the residency program where I trained.
Oh, I see. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool.
And he's actually from this small town where I am in Minnesota, and so he's coming home. So it's a really kind of a neat
nice.
story.
Yeah.
Kind of way to wrap things up for me and open up a spot for someone who really wants it.
Right.
But yeah, there's certainly a lot of identity for physicians and other professionals in our jobs, right? So we're
for sure
kind of have that all wrapped together. And I've tried maybe to not do that as much over my career. I don't lead with that foot necessarily when I meet new people, but nevertheless, it's something I've been wanting to do since I was a kid, essentially, is to be a doctor. And then, of course, worked hard through high school to get into college, worked hard in college to get into medical school. It's just, you haven't come up for air from age 18 till now 42 is where I'm at.
Right.
And so, over the last year, I did go to part-time, so that started last fall. And I have big stretches of time off. So I'll work one very intense week, and then I'll take 3 weeks off. And that has given me a chance to see what life is like when you don't have to go to work on Monday morning. And we have done several trips with our kids where we're gone for 3-4 weeks at a time. And so far, I have not had the pull to come back to work.
I gotcha.
Yeah, and so for me, it's a trial and error. So far, the trial's working well.
Right.
And and then when I come back to work, there are some, like I said, rewarding aspects there. But in the first 10 years of my career, the biggest reward was getting out of debt and starting to make progress towards retirement.
Right.
And now I don't need to keep making progress there. And when you take away that reward, it's a different equation.
It's a different equation. Yeah, different feel. Well, I think you have I think it's a good approach to kind of test the waters, like you're sort of scaling back a little bit, working part-time, trying to figure out, hey, if I choose this other life, what would I really do? Would I really like it? Would I enjoy it? Because it all seems like fun on the surface, but I know people that have, like I used to work in the automotive industry for General Motors, and it's that's like a real environment where you work there 30 years and retire with a big pension and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And especially as an hourly worker or a union member, I was a salaried guy, but you still have the same mentality. And I've seen when I was there, especially when I first got out of school, I saw the people that were retiring at that time. And, there was a number of them that went home and they were really unhappy because they really, built their life around work. And some of them would go home and, died like 2 years later, because they're old and they didn't have, a social net or something, or they didn't make that transition or whatever it was, So I think it's a good way to do it in terms of, scoping it out and seeing if you're going to like this different lifestyle. Would you... in terms of, I've kind of done this transition with myself, and I have a, highly technical background, and it's sort of like, you kind of make this transition and leap, but it's sort of like you have to burn the bridge that you jumped off of in a way, because if you're not in that field every day and not keeping those skills up, they might wither away fairly quickly. Are you concerned at all that if you step away, like, and you're really not doing it for maybe a year and a half or 2 years, but are not?
I would say even a year. I think if you're gone for a year and you haven't stepped foot in an operating room as an anesthesiologist, that's too long.
Too long. Okay. Yeah. That's what I was wondering. Yeah. Right.
So and there is a bit of a leap of faith walking away, and then, okay, maybe after 3 weeks, I don't feel like I need to get back to it. But what would happen after 3 months or 6 months? I guess I don't know yet.
Right.
I do plan to keep an active license and to have my advanced cardiac life support and pediatric life support, these credential things that we do. I'll have those renewed shortly before I leave my job, so that if I were to choose to come back within that first year, I easily could. Mm-hmm. And another option is to do occasional, what we call locum tenens work, which is just filling in for someone who's on vacation or maternity leave, or just a facility that is unable to keep full staffing model and they need help. And that's pretty easy to do as an anesthesiologist, because we don't have our own patients. We show up and take care of whoever's there that needs surgery or is delivering a baby or what have you that particular day. And so I've done quite a bit of that throughout my career, and there is a chance I may choose to do some of that occasionally, just to keep a toe in the water. But I haven't really decided whether I'll do that or not. And one more reason to do that, I have done a medical mission trip where we went to Honduras, and my family was able to come with me and do some different things on the site, which happened to have an orphanage also, but they had a nice surgery center where I did anesthesia, and that might be something that we want to return to.
I see.
It's not something I can do just once or twice a year and feel good about my skills. So maybe I'd do a little bit of locums on the side too. But then I look at that, and I mean, it's wonderful in some ways to be able to give that gift to people that otherwise couldn't afford these procedures. But then I'm kind of stringing along a career that I think I'm ready to be done with.
I see.
So
right.
Yeah, I haven't quite reconciled it all, but
I
it's
gotcha.
a work in progress. Take it 1 year at a time.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Well, because that's so thanks for sharing that, because that's something that that I struggled with when I quit my job about 11 years ago. So I've been consulting on my own, but when I quit, it was I was kind of frustrated when I quit my job, so that's one of the reasons why I quit. But I wasn't ready to take a new job again, and I said, well, I found this project, or the project found me, and I said, well, I'll start consulting a little bit and see what I want to do. And year after year, when I was doing the consulting part, it was always on my mind that the longer I do this, the more I'm losing touch with the position that I quit. So I was a applications marketing manager guy when I quit, when I was back doing advanced technology development, and so it was always a concern of mine, like, am I doing the right thing? But it's been 11 years later, and now I wouldn't change a thing,
Right.
Yeah, you grow
and
into
it. It is nice to be your own boss, I think, too. There's a lot to be said for that, and fewer physicians are their own bosses. Most are employed these days.
Right.
And like you said, your buddy's being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. It's not really what we trained for, and it's tough to be in this position and have people that have no medical background and don't really understand our jobs or know exactly what we do and how we can do them best.
Right.
To tell us how it has to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and I see that, gosh, in the medical profession at large. I mean, this is another crazy topic to talk about, but that's going to be changing rapidly with all the the cost structure and the management thing, the management stuff where all the hospitals and individual practices are kind of getting sucked up into these larger organizations. And it's going to be a different world for medical care going forward for sure. But okay. So thanks for sharing that. So my other question about the Physician on Fire website or blog is, if you were kind of studying all along a little bit, kind of had this understanding of financial wherewithal, you started running these scenarios and analysis on your own, assets and stuff, and realized, I can do this. so you start the blog, but did you have any idea or concept, how good were you in the digital world in terms of, obviously you're using computers at work and stuff like that, but, training to be an anesthesiologist is not knowing about digital marketing stuff, right?
No, that was all completely new to me, the whole WordPress. I mean, I was only able to start a blog because so many bloggers are going for that sweet affiliate money when you click on their link to start your own site.
Right.
They give you a very detailed, click on this, click on that, install WordPress, pick a theme. Okay, I can do this.
Right.
I can follow a recipe. I can bake cookies, so therefore I can start a website.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you, what was the tools that you used, or how did you discover it? What, was there a particular site that you liked that helped you develop your own blog?
I remember the minimalists had I think about 20 steps, and some of it was the technical stuff, and others were more their hints and tips to being authentic and connecting with your audience. And so, I think you need to understand a little bit of both. Just the technical, this is the site where you register your domain, and this is how you install WordPress, and this is how you choose a theme, and
Right.
And then there's the other part of this is how you write, and this is how you help people find your writing. And it doesn't, it might not come naturally, but for me, I think it did. I think the writing is something that I enjoy doing, and I've found a way to write things that people want to come back to read. So
I see. Well, I when I discovered you, I was really excited to share it, like I said, with these two particular doctor friends of mine, because I really love the case studies that you have on there, just the little bits about your own life and your own analysis, but all the kind of technical part of, you have some real spreadsheet analysis of budgets and such that really give people good perspective of, where they might be at, or if they're thinking about how to analyze their own.
Right. I like to use, actual numbers that kind of make sense for other physicians, high-income professionals. Like, they can look at this and say, oh, so I can spend $80,000 a year and I'll take 16 years to reach financial independence. Or if I spend 160, now we're at 22 years, given this income of 300,000 and these tax breaks and whatnot. So,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I do get down into some detail, but I also like to have fun with the site and with
Right.
my life, and so I do mix it up quite a bit with some humor and because this can get really dry. Like, it gets pretty boring.
For sure.
Read about dollars and percentages
Right.
and expense ratios. And
Right.
all this
Well,
stuff.
I was digging it. I'm really kind of just blown away with the breadth and depth, looking at the site, thinking like, gosh, you've only been doing this a couple of years. I mean, I don't know how you build that up, like that. I mean, I just figured out how to do podcasting, a little over a year ago, and I haven't done the blogging thing yet, but I'd like to start creating some more content. And I was just like, wow, okay, this guy's got it going on here. Maybe I need to learn something from you in that respect.
That's just one of those things. If I jump into something, I don't half-ass it. I'm like,
Right.
If I'm going to do this, I'm going to really do this. So.
Well, I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's great because it's your voice in particular. I think people can get a lot out of digging into it and seeing themselves what they might want to do differently, through your eyes, kind of thing. So cool. Well, Leif, we got a few minutes left before we get out of here, but there's always a couple of questions I'd like to ask people that come on and join the reinvention revolution here. And one is, in terms of talking about technology and digging into it, sounds like you were able to, grab onto it fairly quickly and figure it out. But is there something about technology and the world as you see it these days, as you're, transitioning and trying to think about a different type of lifestyle, that gives you some pause in terms of, or a struggle in terms of how you're going to, deal with technology going forward?
Yes, I think it's, it's just ever present, and that twitch to check the phone and constantly be checking the notifications, that can take away from the life you're actually living and that you should be living. It's more difficult to be present, with your family or with your surroundings when you're traveling, if you feel that need to be connected via technology. And so, I think it is wise at times, or maybe all of the time, to to do something to disconnect yourself a bit from the phone or the laptop or whatever it is for you. I was at a CampFI, which is a financial independence gathering of like-minded individuals for a weekend, basically a retreat this last weekend, which explains my voice, which is awfully gravelly today.
I see. Okay.
Just talking to people all weekend.
Right.
In
Cool.
small quarters, but there was a guy named Anthony from Break the Twitch, and he talked about this issue, and people around the room are saying, well, this is what I do. I have an app that rearranges my icons every time I turn on the phone, so that the same thing isn't where you're looking for.
Wow.
So then after a while, you don't use it as much.
I never heard of that. That's kind of a cool idea.
That's hilarious. And then other people, they turn off every notification. They don't have any of their social media apps. They force themselves to use the browser if they really need to check it.
Right.
We're at the point where we're trying to figure out how to make it less convenient to be connected to technology because it's so invasive in our lives.
Right. Yeah, the way I've been dealing with it lately is I'm forcing myself to get out in nature more. So, like concept of forest bathing, like, people go to the beach and sunbathe, like the idea of just nature bathing, just get yourself surrounded by nature and get disconnected and, quiet your mind down, those kind of things.
That's great. We've got an arboretum of, I don't know how many hundreds of acres, but it's a half mile from our house, and I'll go trail running or just take a nice stroll through there. Love it.
Yeah.
No phone with me.
Yeah, and it definitely feels like it rejuvenates you a little bit. So it's definitely something to keep more mindful about, for sure. Mm-hmm. And speaking about being mindful and keeping your mind open to change and reinvention as you're you're really in the middle of making a transition for yourself. How do you keep reinventing yourself as you go through life? What are some tips or any techniques that you've noticed about yourself that you just tend to rely on?
Well, you mentioned being open-minded, and I think that's a big part of it. I had assumed that I would be an anesthesiologist until my kids were old enough to be anesthesiologists, and they're not even got a 10th birthday coming up here. But I think anyone that makes plans beyond about 3 to 5 years out, they're fooling themselves. I mean, it's fine to dream about what the future might hold, but to say, well, in 5 years I'll be here, but in 10 years I think we'll have this house and be living this life, and then at the 15-year point, no, you have no idea. So don't. Right. But don't plan on it, because you're going to be disappointed, or maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised that things worked out even better in a different way. But I think planning beyond a few years ahead of where you're at is just going to be met with surprise in some way. So be open to it. Be open to the idea that life might not look anything like the vision or the dream that you have. It might be better, it might be worse, but if you have a certain expectation, that just makes it a lot more difficult.
Right. Well, I totally agree with that. And these days, the way, different business models are changing, the way technology is affecting the world, I mean, I think it's really, more than ever, you have to kind of just, step back, take a deep breath, and think like, what, I'm just going to go with the flow, and I have sort of an overall direction or thing I might, want to move towards. But, being clamped down and thinking I'm going to do this career and I want to have this position or that promotion in the next 3 years and all that kind of stuff is it's not
right.
It's not
you
as
may
reliable.
Not be with the same company in 3 years, or
right.
The hospital you went to work for might be bought out by a different system, or it might go bankrupt, or the group you join might be bought by a private equity firm, and then now they're paying you 2/3 of what you used to make. And I've seen all of these things happen, and some of them have happened to me, and so just roll with punches, I guess, or be the one throwing them. Either way.
Right. Oh, I like that. Be the one throwing them.
So, I don't know where that came from. It just
That's great. Well, gosh, it sounds like you've lived. That's great experience to share because all those things can happen for sure. Wow, interesting. I love that. Well, maybe I'll have to pull that quote out for the for the episode.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I've got one last question for you that I've been asking people lately, and that is, as you go through this process, or as you're continuing to reinvent yourself as you move along, is there a reinvention revelation that you can share with everybody? Something that you didn't know about yourself or didn't know about blogging or the new things that you're doing that you wouldn't have predicted, but really kind of, turned you on?
I think, just be open to the fact that you may have some skills that you didn't realize. I've never done any significant writing. Usually, when I wrote something, it was an email about something I was upset about, or something that needed to be changed and done differently.
Right.
Through work in some way. But once I started working on it and developing it, I was able to write and connect with people pretty well. Other people would say, well, I can't write, or even the same with public speaking, which I am not really a huge fan of and not all that great at currently.
Right.
But the more often I do something like give a talk in front of people, the easier it becomes. And 5 years ago, I might have said, well, I would never do that. I don't like being up in front of people, Mm-hmm. But be open to trying it. And you probably have skills that you didn't know that you could develop that you easily could.
Right. Oh, I like that. That's a good takeaway, too. Very good. Well, hey, Leif, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking your time. If people are interested in learning more about you or checking out the website, where would you like to send them? Where should they go?
Well, they can go right to physicianonfire.com. I'm pretty active on Twitter with the handle @physicianonfire.
Okay.
I should probably spell that PHYSICIANONFIRE. Yep, I'm on Facebook too. I even started Instagram recently. Yeah, I'm everywhere.
All right, I'll try to find all those handles and make sure they get put in the show notes, so for everybody listening out there can check it out. So, again, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, and enjoyed having a nice conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of.